Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, and as always, it's a pleasure to welcome to the show. It's hard to track her down sometimes. You've been out doing some canvassing for some local politicians. How are you doing today, Christy?
I'm well. How are you?
You were out there working yesterday. How was that?
It was great. It was a great day. We had the weather held out. I was working a poll for a colleague and a friend of mine that is running for judge. So when you're in the legal field, that's part of life, unfortunately and fortunately.
Yeah. So I've never had an opportunity to do that kind of stuff. So yeah, if you're inclined, get out there and help make America a better place. There you go. We'll leave it at that. How's that?
Little fun tidbit though. Yeah. For this particular friend, she made it through. So there was a primary where there were 4 people running and only 2 get to make it onto the ballot for the general election in November. But she had said that if she makes it through, she's booking a Disney cruise. And so that if for her election in November, she's either going on a cruise, having won and going to be a judge, or she's going on a cruise and going to drown her sorrows and not becoming a judge. But she's taking her 3 children on a Disney cruise. And so I am actually quoting a cruise for her to go on after she wins. And she had come up with that all on her own. That's what she was going to do with her family after the election was over. So I think that's fun. So a little DCL even in our politics.
There you go. Yeah. What a better way to celebrate one way, or what a better way just to end an election cycle than to jump on a DCL cruise.
That's what I think.
There you go. Well, before we jump into today's show, we had a magnet giveaway, and we had quite a few people respond, and I think we've found some winners. You want to talk about that just a little bit, Christy?
Yeah, so we had 24 people enter our giveaway, and that was via Instagram and Facebook, and we have drawn our 5 names. They have been contacted, and I guess I can just say them on Facebook. It's Joseph K., Stephanie J., and Robert B., and I believe they've all been sent a private message from DCL Podcast, so they should look for that. And then on Twitter, and we just threw them in a pile and pulled at random, so not Twitter, but on Instagram. Principal Tinker and Dale A. won, so those were our 5 winners, and we want to thank everybody for participating. It was nice to get, actual feedback, so... We also put out there, you're going to probably intro this, well, whatever, we'll just intro it right now. We are doing today's show on the Kids Club, so it's going to be part of our 101 series, so general information series on DCL, and today's is going to be all about the Kids Club. And we put out that we were looking for just information people wanted to know or suggestions or just anything, and we received some feedback from that. So we're pretty excited that we're getting feedback, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
We'll keep it up.
We love the feedback, love interacting with you guys out there, so definitely keep it up, and we'll try and keep posting some questions and maybe some ideas for future shows as well, where you can interact with and we can kind of get that out. Because at the end, I mean, this is for the fun of it for you and I. We love doing it, and we love interacting with all of you out there that want to come on and talk DCL. But at the end, it's just kind of a great place to come and either relax for the day or actually maybe learn something before your next cruise.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for putting those magnets together. I thought they were super cool. We've got a lot more of them, so we're going to find some ways to continue to get them out to you. If you were unsuccessful in winning this first time, which usually that's me. I never win anything.
Well, I'm pretty sure you still got a magnet coming your way.
Yeah. Okay.
You didn't enter. And let me just say, your wife could have entered, but B, that attitude is not the right attitude. That is not how you win. You have to put out in the universe that you will win stuff. I always put out there that I'm going to be a winner.
That's true. Keep that
I want to cruise that way.
What?
Yeah. I have a little... the 2-night cruise coming up later this year that I just entered a contest for travel agents and I won. And about 15 years ago, I won a trip also from the radio.
Wow.
Just by entering contests. Enter contest. You can win vacations.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Not on this podcast. Let's be very clear about that. We are nowhere near giving away a vacation for entering any contest that we have.
Maybe someday in the future it'd be nice to be able to do something like that, just to give away a vacation, but not quite yet. We'll see where it goes.
Maybe episode 1000.
There we go. We'll keep those positive vibes you were talking about, and and set our sights high. So today we were talking about the kids club. So we're just going to go over through some basic stuff about them. We've got a couple segments with my son Alex, where I'll talk about his time on our last cruise, spending time in the Oceaneers Lab and Club. And then also I got a little segment that I did with Andrew that we'll splice in here, which where he talks about his time in the Edge and some of his thoughts to kind of give the first-person perspective of what it's like to be in the clubs. Well, let's just talk about the beginning of it. When you first register for your cruise and you've got that final payment in and you start your registration, that is when you can actually put in all the information for your children at that time to sign them up for the club. And I highly recommend you doing that, because otherwise you're going to have to do it on embarkation day. And embarkation day is crazy enough as it is. Doing things on that first day without having to worry about the hassle of getting in line either before you get on the ship or once you get on the ship, going and tracking down the clubs and trying to put all that information in at that point. Do you have any thoughts on that, Christy?
No, you will pick your secret word that day, though, as well, whenever you do register. So just think about that amongst your family and who would be the ones picking up the kids. I guess there's a couple more points on the registration. If you guys have a split cabin, so you have 2 cabins for your family, whichever parent is with whatever minor kid is the one that has to do the authorization for that kid. So let's say you have a family of 4 or 5 and you are in 2 separate cabins because that's the way you decided to do it, and they're connecting, and you have a parent and some kids in one and a parent and some kids in the other. The parent that's with whatever kids has to give authorization to the other parent, even though they're the parent, to release the kids. And so whatever, or let's say you put your kids in grandma's room, or there's one spouse or somebody's in another room, whatever it is, whichever adult is not in the room with the kids has to give authorization for any other adults that you're traveling with to be able to pick up the kids from the kids club. So you will do that during the registration process, which is either going to be, like Steve said, before you cruise or when you get on the cruise, but just do it, when you're registering. You'll also sign the waivers that basically give Disney, exclusions from liability for anything happening to your kid. And you talk about food allergies in there too, so they will take into account food allergies or any other specific things about your kid. We put in ours for the first time that he actually went to the kids club that he is just a little bit timid and that he may need some assistance just feeling welcomed there. That he has a lot of fun once he gets somewhere, but he just might need help. And so you can put like little notes like that, short but little notes that let them know, and they do read them. So, and if you have any like specifics about what they can eat or not eat, you can put that in there too.
That might be something to address too once you first get on board the ship on embarkation day. You head up to the kids club. You're going to have to go up there anyways. What am I totally drawing a blank on? Because you do all the registration ahead of time.
That armband. So you have to go either in the port or on the ship if they're offering it in the port, or on the ship to get the wristband for the kids.
Right. And those are for kids from 3 or for the nursery age. And I'm not sure if they'd give them, to like a 6-month-old. But I know it's basically the nursery age all the way to 12 are required to have the armbands on, or the wristbands on.
And part of it is because it also, those wristbands list the muster station. And so if there was an issue while the ship was out to sea and they needed to get the muster station as the emergency station where you would go if something was going on with your ship, that is so that they can get the kid to the parents. And so that will have that information on there. It's basically like a magic band, but only for kids and on the cruise ship.
This is total minutia, but they recently changed the wristbands too, so they look like the magic bands like they do in Walt Disney World now. I think like last year they were still kind of the old school bands, but now they're a little bit, they have the flatter heads, and they're just a little bit smaller for the kids, so they fit well.
And they have Mickey Mouse on them.
Yeah, pretty cool. So that might be a time when you pick up the band, because you're going to talk to counselors at that time, some of the kids club counselors at that time, if you have some concerns or questions or whatever else about, like you said, either allergies or whatever or whatnot. That's a good time to talk to them at that point, and they're really good. I remember like our first cruise in Alaska, they had the wristband station before you got on, and the counselors are really good about interacting with the kids and kind of putting them at ease and saying, hey, come on by, we're gonna have a really good time, and all that kind of stuff. So that might be a good time to kind of like break the ice a little bit if your kids are a little bit shy or more timid that first day. But
for real, talk to them about the questions, but make sure you put it online in the form on the computer if there really are concerns about allergies, because there's a lot of kid clubs, there's a lot of employees, they're not going to remember every kid, so they're going to use whatever is officially in that documentation as their way to address things.
Perfect.
So just make sure you put it in writing.
Perfect. So we talked about the wristbands. Those, I believe, are, if you decide to keep them or don't turn them in, they're going to charge you $12.95, I believe is the going rate right now, just for an FYI as well for the wristbands.
You can keep them as a souvenir, but they can't be used again or for any other purpose except to just have a cute little wristband. So you can keep them, or you can return them at the very end of your cruise and they will credit your account back. But they're going to charge your account until you return them. And then you'll, at the very end of your cruise, they'll either credit it back or you've kept it or you've lost it.
Well, let's talk about the different clubs themselves. There are basically 5 different areas for the kids. The first one being the Small World Nursery, and that is for infants 6 to 12 months all the way to 3 years old. And then the next one is the Oceaneers Club and the Oceaneers Lab. It's the largest club on board the ship, and that's for kids 3 to 12 years old. The next is the Edge, which is kind of the tween club, and that's between 11 and 14. And we'll talk about why there's an overlap once we get into the clubs themselves. And then the last one is the Vibe from 14 to 17 years old, and that's the teen club. And there actually is, we're not going to talk about it on this one, but I've got a plan actually to talk about this on a different show. Is it the 1820 Club or the 1820 group or something like that?
It's not the place, so it's not a kids club like the other places, but it is a group for people that are between the ages of 18 and 20.
Right, so kind of people that can't drink.
Right, people that can't be in the kids clubs but also can't drink.
Right, but it kind of gives them, an opportunity. They have lots of different activities. We saw them on the last cruise that we were on. They had like a get-together. Anna-Wake and I were hanging out upstairs at Signals after dinner, and they had a group get-together up there, and they were doing some kind of trivia thing, so it looked like it was kind of fun too. So there's that opportunity as well for definitely the older crowd. So, well, let's talk about the nursery itself. Now, have you used the nursery, Christy?
We used it one time.
Some things to think about. The nursery, it's all the rest of the clubs are free. Except for the nursery. Included. Yeah, okay. You don't have to pay an additional price other than the wristband if you decide to keep it while you're on the cruise. And I guess I saw also that you need to pay for the smoothies up in the Vibe. But the nursery does come with a cost, and it looks like they broke it down, and we never used the nursery. Our kids were older. But it looks like they broke it down by the half hour now. So it's now $4.50 for the first child for the first half hour and $4 for every child after that per half hour. Does that make sense?
Yep. So it's $9 an hour still, but they've broken it down for the first child. But now I guess you can book it in half-hour increments.
Yeah, and you can book time. And it used to see, and I cannot find anywhere where it limits how much time you can have. And I thought it limited how much time you could have. But now you can book space prior to your cruise, and it's kind of broken down as Castaway Club members as to when you can book time space, so that if you have dinner reservations at Palo or Remy or certain times where you're going to need to use the nursery, you can book that ahead of time.
Yes, and on the cruise that we took, we were on the Magic when my son was 10 months old. And my mom wasn't on that cruise, which is part of the reason that we used it. But we just did a drop-in. We wanted to go and see, I think it was Frozen, actually, that we went and saw on the ship. So we just took him to the nursery and, asked, I think maybe we reserved it, but it was like during the cruise. We didn't pre-reserve anything. And we could have gone at other times. They also have, just so we can point out with the Small World Nursery, they have open houses there so that you can play with your kids at the open house in the nursery with the baby toys. I believe it's like an hour before they would open up the nursery for the rest of the day. With the nursery, you bring the items that your baby will need or your toddler. It also is so if your kid is 3 and is not potty trained yet, they cannot go to the kids club on their own. So they can go to open houses at the kids club, the regular kids club, but you can take them to the nursery even still at 3 if they are not potty trained. And so then you would just pay the $9 per hour for your child to be there. So diapered babies obviously can be there because they're starting at 6 months. So you bring all the things your kid needs, and they sit with you at check-in and basically go through the process of how it all works. Then they'll notify you if there's a problem. They do have cribs in a separate room in the back so that if you are there in the evening or have a sleeping baby, then they can sleep in the crib. The one sort of flaw I saw is that the nursery handler, the staff have to get your child out of the crib at the end of the night and then have to exchange them over to you instead of you, the parent, being able to just go in there and grab your kid. You can't get past the door. So they have, when it's not open house time, they have the security door there, and, only the staff members can go back there to get their kids. So then other than that, they just basically ask you what you need to know about your kid, and they watch them for you.
So, and as Christy said, it generally runs, the hours for the nursery generally run from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m., and they have an open house from 8 to 9 in the morning that you can go to. Just another thing on hours, that's kind of roughly the same hours as the other clubs. They're about 9 o'clock in the morning till about midnight for the other clubs, and about midnight they start, looking to hand your kids back to you.
At the nursery, they're going to label everything you give them as well. So and there's actually a couple of items that still have the little label that they put Blake on. It's so cute, and it's like we didn't want to take it off. It's not even a special label. It's just cute that it's labeled from his first time at the nursery.
That's cool. So yeah, 8 to 9. You get your open house, and then it's usually open 9 to 11. They do open, all the clubs open embarkation day. Generally, they have an open house until about 5, and then after that first dinner starts is when they close it down for the adults. So it kind of gives you a chance when you first get on board to be able to go and check out those clubs. Sea days are generally all open. On port days, and you kind of experienced this, I believe, on your last trip too, Christy, where what they do most of the time is have one of them open, and this is for the club and the lab, so for the 3 to 12-year-olds. They'll have one, either the club or the lab, open for open play, and the other one will be closed down for kids to be in. So
I've noticed on the Fantasy is obviously the ship I've cruised the most, that there is a lot of open house, but randomly, and not always a lot of time, but sometimes only an hour, because that's when we would typically take my son. So on sea days and on port days, they'll have still open house, I'm pretty sure daily, in some part of the club or the lab.
Okay, well, that's good to know. So check the Navigator app as far as open house time goes throughout your cruise.
The one thing that I will note compared to every other cruise line is that you can have your child eat meals in the kids club, and they will serve them something at mealtime. They'll tell you when that mealtime is going to be, and it's some sort of kid-specific meal. And they don't charge. So every other cruise line, like in the evening or even at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock or something like that, will charge to keep your kids. But Disney Cruise Line does not. Except for the nursery, they do not charge at all for any of the hours. And they are open pretty consistently. For your 3 to 12, there's going to be a portion of the kids club open for the entire day. That is different than every other cruise line out there.
Right.
Let me say the other major difference of Disney versus other cruise lines is that Disney has their 3 to 12 group as one big giant group. So your 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, they're all playing with the 10, 11, 12, 9, 10, 11, 12, like all those kids are all in one group. Now, as Steve has said, and we'll talk about this again, he thinks that the older kids tend to go towards the lab, right? And the younger kids go to the club. Mm-hmm. But either way, it's going to be that general range. Disney has chosen to do it this way, in all of our understanding, is because they want siblings to be able to play together, because that's always a contentious area. When you have kids of different ages, you want to keep them together if they're in the same family. Obviously, the downfall to that is for people that just have one kid is that your littler kids and your bigger kids are in the same room. So they do have all one instead of designated certain age groups for little mini clubs. It's all one 3 to 12 group.
Right. So that's a little bit about the overview of the club, how they break down. We talked about the nursery, and we talked about food. I'm just kind of looking at the Navigator. They do have food, like Christy said, every day, lunch and dinner. And this is really the Oceaneers Club and the Oceaneers Lab, along with the nurseries, the Vibe and the Edge. The kids are old enough; they're on their own. They can figure out their own food schedule. And you do not have to sign up for this. It's just available. So if the kids are in the club and you tell your kid, "Hey, you can have lunch there," when lunch is served, then they'll get them some food if your kid's hungry. Hopefully they eat if they're hungry, I guess, which mine probably would or would not, depending upon what he felt like at that time. So so food, like you said, is complimentary for the club and the lab. Before we start talking about the actual clubs themselves and some of the breakdown stuff there, let's talk about security. I know that's a very hot topic, and kind of the reason why you go on Disney is because you want to have some of that free time to yourself while your kids play in a safe spot. So what are some of their security procedures? We talked about wearing the wristband, and that's how they're going to check into and out of the club.
And then we talked about who can actually pick up. So that is the other issue. And this is a fun fact, Steve, that you shared when we were talking. Share about who can drop off.
As far as drop off goes, anybody within your group can drop off the kids, but also the kids check themselves in by themselves. And what I mean by that is if they get lost, they're out running around and they get lost from you, they can go to the clubs, and that as a safe space, they will check them in, and that's really for the kids' safety. So hopefully that's coming across right as far as...
So basically if your kid gets lost, you can tell them, and this I had no idea, and it's such a smart thing because you can totally lose, like turn away and then your kid, somehow you get separated. So maybe to tell your child before they go, if you get lost, go check yourself into the kids club and just tell them where it's located. And then they can go and do that if they get separated. And then I'm sure Disney reaches out to the parents. So then the other safety factor that we talked about is that only the people that you've designated can pick up your kids. And then you do have to use the secret password that you've come up with. The other thing is that the kids club have the computer systems like the security personnel do, so that when they're checking in your kid, they'll see the picture of the face, and you probably have to have your key to the world card showing, yes, that's who you say you are too. And then they have it in their computer where the face is going to match, just like the security people do that you took when you were getting on the ship. So they are making sure that the right person has picked up their kid, and then you have to say the word that you've come up with as well.
Right. So when your kid checks in, just like Walt Disney World, they've got the Mickey post that lights up. So they walk up, they touch their magic band, or their wave band is what they call it, and then they are checked into the club. They cannot leave the club. The one caveat is once your child is 8, and we're only talking about the club and the lab now. Once your child is 8, you can give them permission if you want to check themselves in or check themselves out. So at that point, your child would come, if they wanted to check themselves out, they come back up, they touch their Mickey band to Mickey, and that will check them out. And so that is the one caveat. Otherwise, as you were saying, to pick them up, you walk up to the counselor, you touch your key to the world card, it pops up your picture, like you said, they confirm that's you, you have to tell them the secret password, and then your child will touch Mickey to Mickey, and then they'll be checked out of the club. So it's a pretty secure process.
Mm-hmm. And that's similar on other lines. So we recently did the Princess, and they had a similar, a little bit different, but similar concept of making sure that only the proper people are taking the kids.
So that's a little bit about the security. The last thing is they have wave phones on board, and so when your child is in the club, they tell you that you need to have the wave phone with you. That's kind of, there's 2 of them in each stateroom. And unless you're in the suite, maybe you have more. I don't know.
Yeah, you have, like, in the one bedrooms, at least there's 4.
Yeah. So you have your wave phones, and then you bring those with you. They're kind of like the old school, big, kind of clunky cell phone where they can call you if they need to. If your child's ready to leave or something like that, they can call you that way. The last thing I'll talk about is the app. So the onboard Disney Cruise Line app, when you use that for chatting and everything else. Recently, they've changed it now so we let Alex, our youngest, have the ability to check himself in and check himself out. And I will tell you that it's not 100% right on time. Sometimes you get some of the notifications the next day. But some are right on time too. So I think it's a work in progress. So, but you would get a notification when he checked himself in. You get a little email, Alex has checked into the club, and boom, when he checked himself out, you get a little email or a little text to say Alex has checked himself out. But like I said,
it's not an email. Just for clarification, it's like a text.
Yeah, it's a text through the message app that you download when you're on board. So yeah, I need to be more specific on how I use my words, don't I?
Well, only for stuff like this for new people.
Definitely. So that was kind of cool too. So we could kind of track what he was doing, and then and I know this sounds crazy, but we gave him one of our old phones so that we could text with him and say, hey, but we made sure that he had to let us know he was checking himself out before he checked himself out. So it was a way to kind of keep track of him and where he was, and to give him a little bit of freedom. And we're pretty comfortable with him, but we could go into all kinds of security stuff here. Obviously, like Christy said in a previous show, you don't want them wandering the hallways by themselves because you just keep your guard up on Disney, as safe as it is. And I know it's safe 99.9% of the time, but just always, kind of keep that in the background and talk to your kids about it ahead of time as well. Okay, so let's talk about we talked about the nursery. Let's just talk about the club and the lab itself. As we said, that's 3 to 12 years old. What Disney kind of says, and the way they kind of look at it, is that with the lab, seven is kind of the border age between the club and the lab. The club is kind of more, those are the ones, and they're different on each one of the ships, but they have like Pixie Hollow. It's a little place to play. They have Andy's room where they have a big bed that they can climb up on and slide down. And the way they kind of look at the club programs is they'll have things like story time and character meet and greets there and kind of movement activities. The focus tends to be, and the kids just kind of congregate there a little bit, like the younger crowd. That's where they have, and my youngest is 8, and he still had a lot of fun over there too. He went to Pluto's pajama party, and you talked about on the longer cruise where they actually have a sleepover.
Mm-hmm. One person asked a question about if there's anything you have to pre-register for. The only thing that I'm familiar with right now is if you are on a longer cruise that has a sleepover, they have a limited number that they accept for that, and you have to pre-register for that.
And that's once you get on board, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, everything else is kind of come as you go. And they do a good job of making sure that all the kids that want to do these activities get a chance to do it. So, and then the lab is kind of an older theme. They kind of have more educational type programs and participatory programs, stuff like Super Sloppy Science or Learn to Cook. That's where they play Gaga Ball, which is kind of I don't even know how to describe it. It's a pretty fun game though. The kids love it, but it's kind of a movement game. They do they do some trivia over there. They do have a drawing table in the lab. If your son or daughter's a little bit more artsy, they always have somebody over at the drawing table, and that's where. And the lab is also where they have all the computers. So lots of Wii type computer games. They've got the big computer game where you can drive the ship, which is always popular. There's always a line for that. So that's kind of the way Disney looks at the labs. And once again, in the Navigator, you can look at, there's just like a myriad of things to do. And every day, you can kind of take a look at it and see what might be something that kind of appeals to your kids, from bingo to they do Jenga to parachute games in the club where they bring the big parachute out, and block building in the club, to game challenges on the Wii. So there's always something going on there. And I think maybe we could touch on this subject real quick. One of the questions we had, Christy, was how to prepare your children to succeed in club. So do you have any thoughts on that? And I'll throw mine in first.
Yeah, throw yours in. Have you noticed, has my kid succeeded in the club so much? Not really. Which we knew that ahead of time. And frankly, we almost always travel with his grandma. So if he is not with us, he really wants to be with her. And that's just our dynamic. And so it works for us. So I think really you need to give more tips. Honestly, most children, I think 8 out of 10, so then whatever, 1/5 of kids want to be in the kids club for almost the whole time. I think that it's a rarity to actually have kids not wanting to. In fact, my cousin, I just remember this. So she was like 6 or 8 or something. We went on a cruise, and my uncle went to get her, and we were on Carnival. My uncle went to get her one night before dinner, and she was like, "You are responsible for making sure I don't have any fun." And it was because it was the cutest thing ever. Like, we cannot even forget it, because she wanted to be in that kids club all the time. She didn't want to do anything with anybody else. She just wanted to be in the kids club. And my uncle was like, "Well, I'm taking you on this cruise. I want you to spend some time with me." So, he would take her out. But so I'm telling you, kids love the kids club if they're joiners. And then that's kind of what you talk about. If they're already going to daycare, they understand the concept. It's playing with other kids, and that's kind of how you talk them into it. And you can look at the activity sheet for what they have going on, so the Navigator, to see what activities, and maybe if you have somebody that might be a little timid, get them to go during the activity that they want to do, and then hopefully they'll want to stay also or go back And what other tips do you have? Obviously, you're much better at this than I am.
No, you kind of hit on all mine. I think the two big the two big ones are, get them in there early, go with them in the, be with them for maybe the open houses so they, can kind of feel comfortable with the space around rather than just being dumped off and there's just chaos, kids running everywhere. Introduce them to the counselors. The counselors are there and the counselors know. They see a kid that might be a little bit more shy if that counselor's working when you drop your child off, they'll kind of embrace him, not physically, but hey, why don't you come on over here and let's do some drawing, or do you want to go play a video game or something like that? And they'll kind of work with them that way. And I think, like you said, the big one is also just find a time so that you're not dropping them off where it's just total chaos, where there's an activity going on that they can join in, and a lot of times they'll meet other kids that way so they feel a little bit more included rather than just being in the middle of chaos and people running everywhere.
Right.
So I think those are some, and it's a little bit different when you get to the vibe and the edge, but for the younger kids, I think those are all kind of strategies that can help you succeed.
I agree.
So, well, that's a little bit about the club and the lab. I'm going to stop here now, and I had an opportunity to talk with Alex on our last cruise a little bit about his time in the club and lab, and we'll throw that in here now and see what his thoughts were. All right, so here we are. Alex is going to talk a little bit about his experience in the Oceaneers Lab and Oceaneers Club this cruise so far. So which one's your favorite one to go to, the lab or the club?
Probably the lab, because you can drive the ship and there's a Wii.
Oh, there's a Wii too. So what kind of games do they have with the Wii?
They have Wii Resorts, they have Mario Kart, and that's all I really know about.
That's what you like to play. So what's the difference between, in your mind, the lab and the club?
Well, the lab, ship simulator.
Yeah.
And also, in the club, when there's an activity there, they sort of make you go to it.
Okay, so you kind of encourage everybody in the club to go do it. But there's something else that I'm trying to get at that's different between the club and the lab. Are the kids older in the lab or the club?
The kids are older in the lab, but sometimes the littler kids from the club come over to the lab and drive the boat. On all the ships now, it used to be on the Magic the first time, or the Wonder the first time we sailed on it, they didn't have, the club and the lab weren't joined together, so counselors had to escort them from one place to the other. Now there's a tunnel, right, that connects the two? Yeah.
Yeah.
They call it a secret passage.
The secret passage. You did get to do one fun thing in the club, though, right? You did the Iron Man, that's in the lab now.
Yeah, that's in the lab now.
Well, okay, talk about that.
So,
what did you do?
In the lab, there's an Xbox little monitor thing. So on one TV, there's a little simulator you can do where you, if you don't know, the big, from Age of Ultron, you can simulate the big bulky Hulkbuster suit. Oh yeah, so you see yourself doing that on this TV screen, right? Yeah.
Yeah, pretty cool. What about Super Sloppy Science? What's been fun about that?
Oh, a lot of things.
Oh, yeah?
The first time I went there, I made a volcano.
Oh, yeah? Did it actually exploded?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the second time I made slime that I could bring home.
And tonight you're going again tonight, so I wonder what you're going to end up doing tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the ship's horn beeping in the background, if anybody can hear it.
Beep, beep.
Yeah. So, well, cool. Anything else fun to do in the lab?
Well, every once in a while there's Goggle Ball, and you can play on a Wii.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think I mentioned that before. And also there's iPads with Disney games on it, like Crossy Road, and this other game that you may know about called Where's My Water.
Oh, really? Do they still have that? What's that zombie plank game that they had for a while?
Oh, yeah.
Plants vs. Zombies.
Plants and Zombies.
Plants vs. Zombies. Yeah, that's back on the Wonder.
Okay.
There's computers in the lab on the Wonder.
Okay. Well, cool. Well, thanks for talking about any advice for kids coming on their first cruise as far as the lab and the club goes.
If you're a younger family with younger kids, I'd recommend the club. But if you're kids in between say 5 and about probably 10, the lab is better for you.
Yeah, and this is Alex's first time checking himself in and out. How's that been? Pretty cool?
Yeah.
And why is that?
I can go get ice cream whenever I want.
Yeah, I think he's left and gotten ice cream just a ton of times this time, so gone out and watched the World Cup. Actually, one of the quick thing that is super cool that they've got now with the app is that when your kids, when they can check themselves in and out of the lab in the club, and I believe it's 8 that you can do that, you get a text. Wake and I both get text whenever he checks himself in and checks himself out, so you kind of know where he's going. So that's about it. Thanks for jumping on, Alex.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right. Bye. Well, welcome back, and hope you enjoyed that. Alex, our little wild one, some different opinions from his time in the club and the lab. He really embraced it this time. I will tell you that, the last 2 cruises we did before this, he wanted to be with his brother. He was a little bit more nervous, but now that he's 8, he went through the Navigator app himself and said, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this. And literally, we were at dinner, we had the early dinners, and he would go, hey, Super Sloppy Science starts at 6:30. I got to go. I want to be part of that. And he would. He'd leave. He's like, I'll get dessert afterwards. Yeah. So, if this first cruise, it's not, perfect, like, or if you think your kid's maybe not having as much fun this first one, I would venture to say as they get a little bit older, they'll get a little bit more comfortable as you go on a maybe second or third cruise. So that is the Oceaneers Club and Lab. Anything else you can think of that we could touch on there? There's just so much to do in there that to go over all the specifics would be hard.
No, if other people have more questions, they feel free to reach out.
Right. So let's move into the Edge. So if you kind of caught on to this, the age breakdowns are 3 to 12 for the Club and Lab, and then 11 to 14 for the Edge, and then 14 to 17 for the Vibe. And so there's a little bit of overlap there. And why is that? Well, if you've got maybe a 13-year-old and an 11-year-old, and your 11-year-old wants to be with their older sibling, that kind of gives them the opportunity to do that. It also gives kids that might be a little bit more mature at 11 the opportunity to spend some time in the Edge rather than just being in the Club and the Lab where they may feel like they're a little bit too old. That age of 11, and then I think it's the same way in the Vibe, but I'm not sure, and I couldn't find this, but I know for your son or daughter to go to the Edge at age 11, you actually have to sign a waiver and go into the Edge itself and sign a waiver to allow them to go a little bit early. So the way the Edge works, you're not going to have a wristband anymore once you get to the Edge and Vibe. You go in the first day, and at least on the Magic, they put a dot on Andrew's Key to the World card or on his lanyard. And so that showed them, the counselor, so that when they came in, they knew that they were in the right spot. And then I talked to somebody recently where they actually give, when you go to the Vibe, they give you a different Key to the World card itself. It's like a dark one so that they know that you're eligible to be in the Vibe. Have you seen that before?
I haven't.
Yeah, I
That's
guess,
cool.
Yeah, I never really noticed that before, but I'm going to have to look for it next time I'm on the ships. But they actually give, and the Key to the World card still works, so if you give them, if you're brave enough to give them access to
charging purposes.
Yeah, for charging purposes, but to get back into the room and everything else. But it's actually a different card that they give them. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But some success stories for the Edge. The way to succeed, everything that I've heard, and it's really worked. It really worked for Andrew this last cruise. Is you really want to get up there that first day, and
yeah, I've heard that as well. That's the crucial of any teenager club. So frankly, Edge, Vibe, if you have that teenager, you want to get them in there the first day, the first night, because that's where people like click off and pair off, and they come up with, you'll talk more about this, but the counselors come up about what kind of activities they're going to do for that week and things like that.
Yeah, they kind of go around the room, and I'm going to play a little clip here in just a second with Andrew talking about his time in the Edge, and he touches on it, but just in case it's not totally clear, what they do is that first night they do icebreakers, and those icebreakers, they kind of, each kid that's up there kind of talks about who they are, and they do it in a game sort of way. So it's not like get up and tell us who you are. So it's not intimidating that way, but they do it kind of in a game way, so you can kind of figure out like, oh, that kid's into soccer, or he's really into Fortnite. I like Fortnite. Maybe I'll go talk to him about Fortnite or whatever else. So, but I'll let Andrew kind of explain that. But that they do that first day, and like he says, it's an easy way to find kids that kind of have similarities, and it's an easy way to kind of pair off from there. And then from there, like, they have just the counselors, like you said, Christy, give them, hey, these are some things that we can do. What do you guys want to do? It kind of gives them ownership of how they want to spend their week there. So they do drawing, they do cooking classes, they do scavenger hunts. I know on one cruise they were making a zombie movie, so they were going around and filming different scenes, and they put it all together and had a zombie movie at the end. which was...
And let's say your kid can't make it the first day. He's not feeling good or whatever the case is. They just don't make it. I mean, I would still try to get them to go in the future. But like I said, I think they'll have more success if they go in the beginning.
Definitely. We can't really go into all the different aspects of the different ships. I know that the Edge is the smallest, especially on the Magic and the Wonder. It's a lot bigger on the Disney and the Fantasy, or the Disney, the Dream and the Fantasy, as far as the actual space goes. But it's kind of a place for them to kind of come hang out a little bit and meet up. And from what I've seen, at least on the Magic, the group that my son was with, they were kind of out and about. They'd meet there, and then they would go see a movie maybe, or they'd go up to the sports deck and play ping pong or basketball, or they'd go ride the slides or do things like that. So it's sort of, because it's a little bit smaller on the Magic and the Wonder, it's kind of more of a place to meet up, it seems like, than always to hang out for hours on end. But they do have video games there, so definitely a place where they can kind of chill out and kind of have their own space as well. So with that being said, I'm going to put this little clip on that I had the opportunity to talk to Andrew and let you hear what his thoughts are about spending time on the Edge. Well, we got a special guest here today. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Hello.
He is how old are you now?
12 years old.
12-year-old son, yeah. And we are going to talk about the Edge today. So the Edge, just for a little bit of background, is Disney's tween club. You're allowed to go there between 11 and 14, but yet you can still go to the kids' clubs until age 12. That is the Oceaneers Lab and the Oceaneers Club. So we're going to talk about our last trip on the Disney Magic over in Europe on the Mediterranean cruise and kind of your thoughts about it today. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
And you went down to the club or the Oceaneers Lab a couple times?
Yeah, once or twice maybe.
Yeah, was that kind of fun, or do you feel like you're kind of past that now?
Well, there's a couple fun things still down there in the lab, like how you can drive the ship and all that. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, I spent most of my time up in the Edge.
Okay, and we're going to talk about the Edge mostly. So once again, that's between 11 and 14. So Disney kind of gives kids the option that when they're 11 and 12, that 2 year point, to either move on up to the Edge if they're ready to, or if they still feel a little bit more comfortable down in the lab, they can hang out down there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So this time you spent most of your time in the Edge, right?
Yes.
And one of the things that we've learned from other podcasts and whatnot is one of the best ways to make friends up there is to get up there that first night. So can you talk a little bit about the icebreakers?
So on the first night, when you go up to the Edge after dinner, pretty much, there's a whole bunch of fun games that you learn about each other. There'll be one game that some person will stand in the middle, and you'll have to they'll state a fact, and if it's the same about you, you'll switch chairs, and whoever doesn't get a chair, sort of like musical chairs, has to state a fact about them, and then they over and over again. Okay, and that was kind of a good way that you guys could kind of all sort of meet each other up there, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, and so this one's a little bit different because we met, you had a friend up there, Ben, and we met his family on a tour in Rome at the Colosseum before we went on the ship, and we found out that they were going to be with us on that ship, on that cruise, right? Yes. So you kind of had you guys kind of connected a little bit during the tour, so you kind of had somebody to look out for when you first went up there, right? Yes. Yeah, so you and Ben connected, and then how did you kind of meet up with the rest of your friends? Sort of during that night, the icebreakers and all that, we sort of were just running around the ship with some other kids and just hung out with them for the rest of the cruise. Yeah, and one of the cool things that you guys did with the app, so there's a Disney app where you can text people back and forth, is what did you guys do? We were able to text each other. Yeah, so you set up just a separate chat room, right? Yes. With everybody on board, with everybody that was part of that group, right? Yes. And you guys kind of connected, or you guys kind of stayed in touch the rest of the trip, right? Pretty much, yeah. And how'd you use it, to get in touch with them? Find out when they're going to the Edge, or figure out where they are, or what they're doing. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, one of the things you would do is, they usually had the later dinners, and we had the early dinner, so you guys would kind of connect and say, hey, let's meet at the Edge at, 10, right? Yeah. And then 10:30, and then come, and that's 10:30 at night. Yeah. It was kind of cool to stay up that late. Yeah, we pretty much stayed up till midnight almost every night. Yeah. So let's talk about the Edge itself. On the Magic and the Wonder, it's a pretty small space. It's just got a couple couches, tables, and what else? And there's 2, maybe 3 little video game screens, and then one big one that you can play Just Dance and Mario Kart there as well, but mainly not that.
But they'll also have like a little sitting area where you can go get ice cream for free and bring it back.
Mm-hmm. So you guys did that a couple times?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. All right. So no Fortnite?
No.
No Fortnite, unfortunately, for the Fortnite fans out there. But on the dream and the fantasy, the space is a lot bigger.
I bet it is.
Yeah, just looking from the picture. So we'll have to find out and report back on that when after we go in spring break. But you went up to the Vibe as well. How does the Vibe? So the Vibe is for the 14 to 18. How much bigger is that compared to the Edge on the Magic and the Wonder?
It's about the same size, except for the fact that it's split into 2 rooms and has its own little bar.
Yeah, it's like a smoothie bar up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of cool. So talk about some of the games that you guys played with the counselors during the trip.
2 of the games that I played one of the games that they play pretty much the whole entire cruise is called Heroes and Villains, where when you come in, you get a sticker which is either heroes or villains, and you'll be on that team, and then there'll be certain games, like it can be a Mario Kart challenge, or it can be some trivia challenge, it can be anything. And then you'll do all those challenges, and whoever has won the most challenges at the end of the cruise wins.
Yeah, it's like so you guys kind of followed along and jumped into some of those games each day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, just to kind of add points to your team.
Yeah.
And you were what were you this time?
Heroes, I think.
And did you guys win or lose?
I think the villains may have won. I don't exactly remember.
At the last, did they win anything, or is there any?
No, you don't win anything. Just
more for the fun of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about the other game or the trivia game you played and what you got to win.
So there was one game. It was like root beer float trivia game where we went up to the Vibe, and the Edge and the Vibe were competing like against each other. It was like a one-on-one trivia thing against everyone who wanted to play. And it was like about the ship, like how many lifeboats are there, or like where is something located, or the biggest room. And once you answered, I think it was 4 trivia questions correctly, then you were able to go over to the little bar that they have in the Vibe and get a root beer float.
So that was pretty cool, huh?
Yes.
Yeah. Ice cream again.
Yeah.
I'm starting to catch a familiar theme. So what are your recommendations for kids if they're going first time up at the Edge? What are some of the recommendations you can give for maybe like adults to tell their kids or kids to listen to about how to have fun in the Edge, and what are your thoughts?
Definitely try and go on the first day and go there pretty often, because then it'll be a little bit easier to make more friends and just hang out there and figure out who you want to hang out with and all that.
Mm-hmm. Do you think like as a space, an Edge is a place to really kind of hang out long term, or is it more kind of a place to meet up and then go explore the ship together? Like you guys went and saw movies and played ping pong and foosball, and what do you think?
I'd say it's more of like a little meetup place, because or at least on the smaller ships, which is the only ships that we've been on. Because all it really is either you can sit there, play Mario Kart, eat an ice cream, or do all the fun trivia games. But those aren't always going on, so I feel like it's more of a meetup place where you can go and do something else aboard the ship.
Yeah. Did you guys ever get together and go swimming at all, or go to the aquadunk? I don't remember.
I think once.
Okay. And what was your favorite movie on the ship this time that you guys went and saw?
I'd say we went and saw Incredibles 2. That was probably my favorite since we saw it like 2 or 3 times at like midnight.
Yeah. I guess the last thing is the counselor. There's always a counselor up there, right?
Yes, there's always like 2 or 3.
Okay. And then just like the Oceaneers Lab in the club, look in the Navigator or on the app, and you can find out the different programs that they have going on that day.
Or what time and all that.
Yeah. Was there anything that you missed that you wanted to do? Do you remember like something that I'm trying to remember some of the different programs that they had going on up there?
I wouldn't say I missed anything that I really wanted to do. Except for the only bad thing about it, especially if you're one of the younger kids in the Edge, is the fact that some of the fun things are later at night, and if you have like an early excursion the next day or anything, it's a little hard to get to do all that fun stuff. Yeah,
that is true. A lot of the activities that go on, it's kind of the same way in some ways in the lab, but the lab in the club, it tends to be just a little bit earlier in the evening so that kids can get to bed afterwards. But a lot of stuff they have stuff that goes on at midnight.
Yeah. And like 2 hours after midnight.
Yeah, so if if you want to hang out that late, they definitely have stuff that's going on that late as well.
Or
too,
if you have a sea day the next day or nothing going on the next day, then
right.
It's up to you.
Right. So overall thoughts on our cruise to the Med. What'd you think?
I thought it was really fun and cool to go on.
What was your favorite memorable part? Would you say?
I would say either seeing the Colosseum or the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
Okay. And what are you looking forward most to? You're a big fan of the Aquadunk, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So what are you looking most...
Definitely.
What do you... Since we're finally going to go on one of the Dream class ships, one of the big ships here in a couple months, what are you looking forward to the most?
The bigger water slide, which will, I think, definitely be fun. Especially my little brother is excited about that. But I would say I'm excited to see like the bigger area and what's different about the ship compared to the smaller ones.
Okay, well, cool. Well, thanks for coming on and sharing your experiences, Andrew. This has been helpful for a lot of people, so appreciate you coming on and doing this.
Yeah.
Well, welcome back. I hope that all made sense. He really enjoyed his last cruise. Well, and then the last space is the Vibe, and that's going to be from 14 to 17-year-olds. That's for the true teens that are on board, and it is a space on the Magic and the Wonder. It's up in the funnel. It's much larger than the Edge. It's kind of a place where they have couches and video games, and I know they have a smoothie bar. And then, as you've seen on the Fantasy and the Dream, Christy, it's even bigger.
Yeah, and they have the outdoor area with a little pool and outdoor seating. And so that is all the way forward.
So it's a really cool hangout place for the kids. And one of the things I thought this is interesting reading Disney's philosophy with the kids clubs is in the club and the lab and the nursery, the counselors kind of look at their position as kind of watching over the kids, whereas once they get into the Edge and the Vibe, it's more the idea that the counselors are peers even though they're older, and it's more interactual with the kids rather than feeling like they have to supervise them. So it's kind of like, hey, this is your space, how do you want to use it and within reason, and what do you want to do over the course of this cruise.
Maybe camp counselor like as opposed to teacher like.
Right. So, and then up in the Vibe, it's the same kind of things. They have a lot of different activities that are available. They have dance parties, they have smoothie parties, they have smoothie tasting, I believe. And yeah, smoothie tasting parties. One cool thing that they do allow the bigger kids to do, they have certain hours where they have the Edge kids take over the Vibe kids take over the Edge, and then they also have a spot where they can take over the lab. And that's usually like about 11 o'clock at night or midnight, where they'll give them that opportunity one night. So
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so kind of a fun spot for them as well to kind of see the other different spaces.
When I have been standing in line for the restroom or just waiting for a show to start or things like that, and there's teenagers around, I do ask them if they are enjoying the kids clubs and if they're utilizing them, and everybody loves them.
The one thing I do know that they take it very seriously, and I heard this from when we were on our last cruise. One of the family that we got to know, their daughter that was up in the Vibe, and she was just kind of joking around. She's like, no PDA. They make that very clear the very first day. So they're kind of policing that stuff up there and around the ship. So they do put a pretty good emphasis on that, I guess. So we'll have to get somebody on the show that's been on the Vibe. I think that'd be kind of a fun show to do to kind of get their take.
Yeah, for sure.
So those are the kids clubs. A lot of different aspects there. If we didn't touch on a topic, or if we didn't answer a question, or if a question kind of came up, feel free to reach out to Christy and I, either through Facebook at the DCL Podcast or Pack Your Pixie Dust, and or through Twitter, and we'll try and find an answer for you if we don't have it right away. Is there anything else that you can think of about the clubs before we close out the show today, Christy?
No, that's it.
I think this is probably the sweet spot for Disney. They do such a good job with the clubs. In all honesty, it's a huge reason why we continue to go back, because just in our last cruise, it was fun to get up, have breakfast together as a family, go out and spend a day doing things at a port, and then come back, have dinner, and then at least in our family, everybody kind of needs their own space, and the kids clubs provide that space for us, so they can go out and play and find time with kids their own age, and they can spend some time with them, or maybe just go chill out and play a video game or something like that. And then it gives my wife and I a chance to have a little bit of a quiet time as well, to go do what we want to do. Maybe go take in an adult show, win a trivia game. I'm going to be positive here. Go to trivia and win some trivia.
That's right.
Yeah.
Read a book.
Yeah.
Read 7 books.
And I know that with Blake, he hasn't been as excited about the clubs, but that's why Grandma comes with.
Well, right. And so we're going to keep trying. We have the Labor Day cruise coming up. I don't know when the show is going to air, but Grandma will not be on that little 3-night cruise. And so we'll have him try out the club again, every time. And it's such a short cruise, so I'm sure he will not be in there very much. But if we can just get him excited, reminding him that he likes playing with other kids and we're not kids, so he should spend more time there for sure.
Yeah. And I mean,
there is a club. We didn't talk about this. There is a kids club and a teen area as well at Castaway Cay.
Oh, good point. Yeah, definitely.
So there is a drop-off, check-in club for the 3 to 12-year-olds at Castaway Cay, and then there's an Edge right in a vibe section. So they have all of that figured out for Castaway Cay as well.
Yeah, and once again, no cost. Well, except than the cost of the cruise.
No additional cost.
No additional cost. Yeah, so there is that place, and that's a good point for those of you that want to run the Castaway Cay 5K. They do make that open, so you can drop your kids off. Come out, drop your kids off there, run the 5K, and then come back and pick them up. So they do have that open early enough to if your child's not old enough to run the 5K with you or doesn't want to run the 5K with you, if that's something you want to do. But yeah, they have sections for all 3 clubs on the island as well. That's a good point.
And really quick, just since we mentioned it, the Castaway Cay 5K, there's no charge. You have to sign up, though, in advance, and you can run and walk it. And it's not a timed event. It's just a fun run. And you get a medal at the end, and it's super fun.
Yeah, I think that's the coolest part that I've got you've got your 5K Castaway Cay medal, which is that's kind of cool. Well,
it's so hot though. So hot. Always. It's the most humid place on the planet, I think. So anyway, yeah. So the kids club.
Get out there.
Let us know what your kids think. And if you have a 14 to 17-year-old that would like to tell us about the vibe, we'd love to talk to them about it.
Definitely. Well, as we close out today, I want to thank everybody for coming back and taking a listen. It's always a pleasure to bring this podcast out to you. If you know anybody out there that would enjoy hearing our show, we'd love it if you'd share it with them. It helps us grow our name in the Disney Cruise Line or the cruising podcast groups of families that are out there that people listen to. And between now and the next show, if you'd like to get in touch with us, you can reach me on Facebook at DCL Podcast or Twitter at DCL Podcast. And where can people find you, Christy?
Pack Your Pixie Dust on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And then DCL_podcast is our Facebook page for the podcast. Instagram. I am the admin of that, but it is our, DCL podcast page. If you have a picture you'd like to share, so if you post something and want us to post it, you can tag us in a post and we can, look to do that, reach out to do that with you.
Perfect.
So reach out and connect.
Definitely. Well, once again, thanks for coming back and taking a listen. And if you're heading out on your next trip between now and our next show, all of us here at the DCL Podcast would like to wish you fair winds and safe travels as you head out on your next adventure. Thanks again for coming back and taking a listen. And we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.